I hope that you are well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be today we'll be doing our grade 5 English lesson on idioms and adages. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 5, and then we're scrolling down up until we get to the chapter of idioms and adages. All right, so our chapter is idioms and adages. Subject is English language arts, grade 5. And the lessons that we are focusing on is to determine the meaning of idioms from context. That will be set 1, and then to identify the meaning of idioms and adages, also set 1. And then in our next lesson, we will do set 2. Right? All right. So now an idiom, right? We're going to find out what idioms are and what adages are. So an idiom is a phrase that means something different than what the words in the phrase mean on their own, right? So you are not going to interpret the meaning of an idiom exactly like it is said, right? So it is a phrase that means something different than what the words in the phrase mean. So, for example, so once again, an idiom, right? It is a phrase that means something different than what the words in the phrase mean, right? On its own. Yes, it's a common phrase. So it doesn't mean exactly what you say, right? Like, for example, if we say under the weather, right? So if I say that I'm a bit under the weather, then it doesn't mean that you see the weather, it is sunny, it is raining, it is cloudy, it is snowing, so I am under that weather. No, it doesn't mean the direct words as to what you are reading, right? So it's nothing even to do with weather. So if you say I am under the weather, then it's not about weather. It means that someone isn't feeling well, right? So if you are not feeling well and you're either coming down with maybe a fever or the flu or something, then you can say that I am under the weather, right? So under the weather means that you are not feeling well. right? So it's a phrase that means something different than what the words in the phrase mean. You cannot, it's not a direct, it's not a direct let's say meaning of what the words are saying, right, within that phrase. You need to interpret it different because it means something different to what the words actually say. All right, so don't worry. Now it's fine. Do not delete it. If you haven't heard idioms, this will be our first day to do it, right? And I hope that you would I hope that you're going to understand and have an understanding of what idioms is by the end of the lesson. All right, so once again, right, an idiom is a phrase that means something different than what the words in the phrase mean on its own. And we made an example of under the weather, right? It is nothing to do with the weather, right? It just means that you are not feeling well. Yes, if you say that it's raining cats and dogs, right? Then yes, it is to do with the rain, but it's not anything to do with cats and dogs, right? Because if you like, there's another idiom, right? Like what Seth says, raining cats and dogs. So raining cats and dogs just means that it is raining, like it's raining a lot outside, right? It's almost like it's storming outside kind of thing. So that is what it means when they say it is raining cats and dogs. And if you think of cats and dogs, do you think that cats and dogs get along, right? Most times they don't, and that is why people would even say that you fight like cat and dog, right? Because usually they do not get along, right? So usually if they fight, they are fighting, they on, it's always trouble with them, right? So it's raining cats and dogs, meaning that it is raining a lot, right? And that is an idiom. All right, so Sally stayed at home because she's feeling under the weather. So Sally was feeling under the weather, meaning that Sally wasn't feeling well, and that is why she stayed at home, right? So, which means that they say that the meanings of an idiom cannot be found by looking at the meaning of each word. If you're going to look at each one of that word, the same with raining cats and dogs, if you're going to look at each one of those words, raining cats and dogs, then you're going to think it's to do with rain, it's to do with cats, it's to do with dogs. Then you're going to miss the purpose of what the idiom actually means, right? But raining cats and dogs, for example, right, it just means that it's raining a lot, right? It's you wouldn't even want to go outside. It's the same with under the weather. It is nothing to do with under, it's nothing to do with the weather, but it's to do with the fact that I am not feeling well. All right. So you're going to have to remember the idioms or figure out their meanings by looking at how they are used. So sometimes they will be used within a sentence, right? And then that is how you'll be able to figure out the meaning by just looking at how it is being used within a sentence or within a phrase, right? All right, then we have adages, right? And an adage, right, also it means something different from what it says. So this is now meaning something different to what it says, and that is an adage, which is adages. And adages are old sayings that gives advice or describes the way that things are. And usually the old sayings are things that our parents or our grandparents or great grandparents, sorry, it is still things or sayings that they still believe, right? For example, birds of a feather flock together. That is an adage, right? So I'm not sure if you heard of birds of a feather flock together. So birds of a feather flock together. What is birds of a feather flock together? Have you heard of that already? So a phrase is basically just like a group of words. You get noun phrases, verb phrases, right? It is basically just a group of words. It's like saying under the weather, right? It's a group of words, right? So that is a phrase. And a group of words, right? It's we can even say that a phrase can be an expression, an expression in some context, right? So it's a group of words. You can either get singular words, singular phrases, plural phrases, right? Figurative language is your idioms and your adages, right? Because it doesn't mean anything direct. It's not the direct meaning of what the phrase is, right? That is the figurative language that we're talking about. Because literal will mean that if we're talking about under the weather, then we're talking about under the weather. All right. So if we look at the adage or adages that says birds of a feather flock together, right? Then it is nothing to do with birds flocking together, right? It's nothing to do with feathers flocking together. It's nothing to do with the feathers that are the same, and it's nothing to do with the type of birds, right? That is not the meaning. That is why we say an adage, it also means something from what different from what it says, right? It either describes some things, gives advice to some things, right? So it describes the way that things are. So if we say birds of a feather flock together, then it means that people who are alike spend time together, right? So you can see, you can either say birds of a feather flock together, it can be in a negative way or it can be in a positive way. Yes, so people with similar interests, they hang out together or spend time together. That is correct. And that is what I'm saying. Your birds of a feather flock together. That can either mean it can be in a positive way or it can be in a negative way, right? When we say in a positive way, right, then they mean in the sense of it's almost like if you guys are studying together or um you just show positive vibes to one another, right? You are always behaving. Then birds of a feather flock together, meaning that they will say, oh, Seth is friends with Matthew and so on. So, they are good kids, right? They get good grades. That is birds of a feather flock together because now all of you are also getting good grades, right? But if you have even a group of boys or group of girls who are they're not doing so well, they are disrespectful, they have bad manners, right? And now maybe, some of them are saying something within the group, then somebody would maybe say that, birds of a feather flock together, because it means that, yeah, I can see none of them have good manners, right? All of them are rude, all of them, their grades are low, so that is actually what it means, right? So with the same interest, they hang out together, same manners, whatever, same whatever, they hang out together, they spend time together. Yes, so if we say raining cats and dogs, right, it basically means that it is raining heavily. So it's raining. It's that is what I'm saying. Raining cats and dogs. It means it's raining heavily, or you can say it is just an unusual heavy rain. It's raining hard outside. It's like wind and everything, right? That is why it's almost like an exaggeration of rain. But yes, Matthew, that is correct. It is raining heavily. Think of when it rains and the wind is blowing, and yeah, that is raining cats and dogs. I'm so happy that you guys are also helping one another. So well done to that. So, when it comes to the meanings of idioms and adages, right? The meanings of idioms and adages cannot be found by just looking at the meaning of each word. It's like I said, you cannot just look at the word birds of a feather flock together and then think it's going to be about birds, it's going to be about feathers, it's going to be about flocking, and it's going to be about together, right? So you cannot do that. You're going to have to remember and figure out the meanings by looking at how they are used. And they are used in a sentence, and then we are going to have to interpret or see how or what it actually means, right? All right. So here we are going to have a few idioms, right? Here we have a few idioms. Here are three different types of idioms as well as the meanings to these idioms, right? Here it says, what is the meaning of back to square one? Right? So we're going to, now you're going to read a sentence and you're going to have to see what the phrase back to square one means. So we need to say what's the meaning of back to square one. It says, I found a huge error in my math. So I had to go back to square one and try again. So if I were to tell you, let's go back to square one, then what does that mean? Back to square one. So if we were to say we're going back to square one, then it means that we are going right to the beginning, right? So we're going back to the beginning again. So that means back to square one. So they want to know what is the meaning of square one. Back to square one is to the beginning, right? Oh, sorry, I did not see the question. What is the question? What is the question, Matthew? I can't seem to see the question. Is it about the birds of a feather flock together? Are you saying that? All right, the other idiom. Yeah, they're saying, what is the meaning of can't hold a candle to? Can't hold a candle to. And remember, it is nothing to do with candles. It's nothing to do with holding or not being able to hold something, right? So here they're saying Samir's painting is good, but it can't hold a candle to the painting in the museum. So Samir's painting is good, but it can't hold a candle to the paintings in the museum. So can't hold a candle to, it basically means that it means to be not as good as something else, which means that Samir's paintings are very good, right? Or let's say he's an excellent painter, but his paintings is just not good enough, or is just not as good as the ones in the museum. Right? So that is what they mean by can't hold a candle down. Bite the bullet. To be honest with you, I've actually never heard of that saying, but it means it means to decide to do something difficult or unpleasant, right? So it's like where you decide to do something different or unpleasant that one has been putting off or hesitating over. So doing something difficult or unpleasant. That is what it means. So decisions have to be taken as a director. You have to bite the bullet. Because yeah, the example that they're giving us is like they're saying decisions have to be taken as a director. You have got to bite the bullet. It's like making a decision that is difficult or unpleasant, like maybe letting go of someone, firing someone or making decisions. That is what it means. All right. So if we look at the other meaning that is also an idiom, it says grasp at straws. So what is the meaning of grasp at straws? And here they're saying after Cassie forgot her point, she started grasping at straws, desperately hoping to win the debate somehow. So grasp at straws. I'm not sure if you heard of grasp at straws already, but grasp at straws means to struggle to succeed when chances are bad, right? So here they're making an example of when Cassie was doing her debating, right? And she basically forgot her point. So she was struggling to succeed when chances are bad. It's like she couldn't think of anything. I'm not sure if you were in a position already like that where you have to, usually it's in tests, right? Where like things were going so well, but then there's one or two things that you just don't understand. You totally forgot it to an extent that like you can't even remember it at all. All right. So now we're going to look at adages, right? Here's a few words that are adages, and we said adages are also sayings, right? It's usually grandparent sayings that people still believe. Okay, so here they say, what is the meaning of haste make waste? Haste makes waste. Have you ever heard of the word or the saying haste makes waste? And when we say haste makes waste, then it means acting too quickly causes mistakes. So haste makes waste, meaning if you are too hasty, you are too quick to do something, then you are going to make a lot of mistakes, right? So haste makes waste or causes mistakes. So acting too quickly, it causes mistakes. Then we also have what is the meaning of a watched pot never boils? A watched pot never boils. And when we look at the word of the look at the phrase or the adages, which is a watched pot never boils, then it is time feels longer when you are waiting for something. Have you ever waited for something and they said it's going to come in a few minutes time and you are waiting, or let's say class needs to end but you are looking at the time and it is just not 45, the time is going so slow because it's only 1:27 now, right? And that is what it means. A watch pot never boils. Time feels longer when you're waiting for something, right? When you're waiting for the class to end, now the class is taking even longer, or the time is taking even longer or going longer. All right, now what is the meaning of as the crow flies? As the crow flies. And the meaning of that adages that says as the crow flies, it means by the most direct route. So by the most direct route, right? So that is basically our idioms and adages, right? We said an idiom is a phrase that means something different than what the words in the phrase mean on their own. And adages also means something different from what it says. It is old sayings that give advice or describe the way that things are, right? Those are idioms and adages. All right, so now we're going to a+students.ca and we are going to do our test, right? So we're going to the first one, which is to determine the meaning of idioms from context. So we're going to do one activity and then we're going to our test. So here it says, what is the meaning of a rat race? It says, Mr. Stanley decided to leave the rat race by quitting the job he disliked. Is it a race that rats are taking part in? Right? Rats racing, is that what it means? A rat race. What is the meaning of rat race? It says Mr. Stanley decided to leave the rat race by quitting the job he disliked. All right, so a rat race is, it means that it is a useless ongoing struggle. So he decided to leave this place where he's struggling, right? It is just useless things that is going on in this workplace. So he decided to quit a useless and ongoing struggle. All right, so now we're going to the test, right? And we're going to say what is the meaning of a phrase. You're going to identify it within a sentence, and then you're going to say what the meaning is, right? So, what is the meaning of at the drop of a hat? I'm not sure if you heard already of at the drop of a hat. And it says, don't mention Hawaii because Shauna will show her photographs of Waikiki Beach at the drop of a hat. Is that falling to the ground, drop of a hat, or with little persuading at the drop of a hat? Which one is correct? Is it falling to the ground, drop of the hat, or with little persuading? No problem, Angel. At the drop of a hat. That is also correct, right? It's doing something without hesitation or without thinking, right? But in this case, we can say with a little persuading, right? Because it's not falling to the ground. Falling to the ground would be a direct translation. So we will say with a little persuading, without hesitation, something that you would do immediately or willing to do immediately, right? So that is also correct. All right. What is the meaning of draw the line? Draw the line. Does it mean that we are going to take a ruler and draw the line? It says, I'll agree to the play, but I draw the line at going to the party afterwards. So I'll agree to going to the play, but I draw the line at going to the party afterwards. Is it to set a limit one won't go beyond, or to make a mark with a ruler? Draw a line. Is it to set a limit one won't go beyond, or is it to make a mark with a ruler? Remember drawing a line. We said it's not, idioms are not direct translated words, right? Yes, you may, Angel. Remember, I don't know what you guys are doing that side, so you may. All right, so we will, the first one, to set a limit, one won't go beyond, right? Well done. So it's stuff that you set the limit to and things that you are willing to do or accept. What is the meaning of have a big mouth? It says my cousin Ryan has a big mouth, so he told everyone that I like Owen. Is it to accept an offer now for a later time or to tend to give away any secrets? Have a big mouth. Is it to accept an offer now for later time, or to tend to give away secrets? So, what is our idiom or the meaning of our idiom? To have a big mouth. Wow, so people have been telling you that you have a big mouth. Do you tell people, do you reveal people's secrets or personal information? Because that is what it means. All right, so we're going to, it is basically to tend or to give secrets away. So well done. All right, so now we're going to adages, right? Identifying meaning of idioms and adages. And we said adages are also like similar to idioms, right? Where idioms, it means something different than what the words in the phrase mean on their own. And adages, it also mean it's like a saying that either describes or it's like things that people believe, right? But it also has a figurative meaning. So what does it mean when you say in a nutshell? So this is what I mean in a nutshell. What does that mean? All right. So in a nutshell means in a few words, right? So let's go to our test. What is the meaning of put a cork in it? What do you think they mean when they say put a cork in it? No, that is correct. That means to put a few words. It's like so it's it's like having a few words, right? It's in a few words. That is what it means when they say in a nutshell. So well done. You are actually saying a lot of right answers, so just be confident in it, right? Because you're doing very well. So, what is the meaning of put a cork in it? Is it to accept unpleasant results of one's actions or to stop talking right now? That is to put a cork in it. All right, so if we look at the word or the saying that says to put a cork in it, right? Then it means to stop talking right now. So if let's say if somebody tells you to put a cork in it, okay, let's say if you want to tell somebody to put a cork in it, right? Then it's like telling somebody to stop talking right now. But that is more used in a rude word to tell someone to stop talking, especially if they are complaining and complaining all the time. Then you just tell them, put a cork in it. It's like, stop talking. Like, I don't want to hear the complaints. You are just nagging and complaining all the time. Right? So that is what they mean by put a cork in it. All right. What is the meaning of watched a watched pot? A watched pot never boils. This is an example that we made earlier. A watched pot never boils. So, what is the meaning of that? Does it mean acting too quickly causes mistakes or times feel longer when waiting for something? Thank you, Angel. All right, so the meaning of a watch pot never boils. It is a second option, which means time feels longer when you're waiting for something. Yes, that is correct. Guys, why is Prabha the only one that is responding or giving answers? I'm not even sure if I'm saying your name correctly. All right, so what is the meaning of split hairs? Split hairs. Is it to fight over tiny differences? Split hairs or to brush one's hair too hard? So is it to fight over tiny differences? All right. Or to brush one's hair too hard? Split hairs. split hairs. All right, so we can say split hairs. We can say it's option 1. Yes, so well done, guys. Option 1 is correct, right? It is nothing to do with splitting of the hair. All right. Oh, this is one that everybody should know. What is the meaning of if the shoe fits, wear it? This is something I'm sure that all of you have heard before. What is the meaning of if the shoe fits, wear it? Does it mean when one bad thing happens, more bad things also happen? Or if someone said, or if something said about you is true, accept it? I am Miss, which is MS, just MS for Miss. So if the shoe fits, wear it. All right. So which means that if something is said about you is true, then accept it. It's like if I say something or you say something and somebody's like, no, but it wasn't me, right? Nobody said it was you, but if you feel like, the saying is for you, then if the shoe fits, wear it. That is what they mean. Right? So well done. It's Miss MS. The difference between Miss, which is MISS, and MS, Miss is used, MISS is used when somebody is younger than 18, right? And MS, right, is like when it's somebody older than 18, but they are not married, right? And then we have Mrs., which is MRS. That is when someone is married, right? So it's just MS for Miss. All right, guys. So that is now the end of our lesson on idioms and adages. We said idioms are basically sayings, right? Or phrases that mean something different than what the word in the phrase mean on its own, right? And then adages also means a word, or it's like sayings that describe something, but it's not a direct or literal meaning of it, right? So thank you very much for joining the class. Thank you for entertaining me, right? Thank you for all the questions. Remember, you can ask me any question and I will answer depending. So till next time, you must have a good evening further. Goodbye. Yes, Miss is used, MS is used when you are not married. So I am not married. That is why I'm a MS, Miss, a Miss.